Good afternoon, coming to you from the beautiful city of Montreal, Canada. It's about 3:30 p.m., minus 12 degrees Celsius, so it's really not that bad today. I mean, I got to a point now where whenever it's less than minus 15, I'm like, it's not so bad today. It's like summer, practically. There seems to be some kind of event happening here. I don't know what's going on. Got the art connoisseurs in town. The city of Montreal is the artistic capital of Canada. It's gonna sound like I hate this country by the way I'm talking about it, but I really don't. I really don't like the way we're going right now. I don't like where we're headed. I don't like where we've been heading. And I'm at a point now where I wanna talk about this. I wanna talk about the shortcomings of this country, although I've gotten so many great things from here. I lived here for the last 12 years. I've seen multiple governments. I've lived all over the country. And I don't remember it ever being this bad, man. It's bad. It's horrible. And here are the 11 things that I absolutely hate about this place. And let's start with the obvious. This is not what the average March should look like in a big city. The winters here are absolutely brutal on every level. Minus 12, I was saying, it's not so bad, because it gets so much worse. If you're the kind of person that likes weather changing all the time, you like having really bad rain in the morning, followed by some sunshine, then some snowfall in the afternoon, and some heavy winds in the evening, you're gonna love Canada. It's great. It's like the weather here is ADHD. Most of the time, they don't even salt the roads here because after minus 10 or so, salt does nothing at all. So they have to put gravel and rocks in the road so cars actually have traction when they're moving and people can actually step on them so they don't slip. As you guys know, I am bald. I have no hair and my head gets cold. I've realized that I wear my hat on more days of the year than I don't because of how cold it is here. So the question becomes, who do we blame for this horrible weather? We can blame God, but that's kind of pointless. Or we can blame the one guy who is responsible for this country going to shit, even though the weather has nothing to do with him. The one thing he didn't mess up is the weather, and that's the Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. He is, in my opinion, the single most incompetent human being on the face of the planet. Absolutely worthless on every level. I'm not even joking when I say this. You could go right now to a random farm in Canada, pick any random donkey on that farm, make that donkey prime minister, and that donkey would do a better job than Justin Trudeau. That's not a joke. That's a serious fact. He's been in office for the last 9 years now, and since then, everyone's costs of living have gone up insane amounts to a point where most people are paying double what they used to pay. They're paying double for their groceries. They're paying double for their rent. So if your monthly expense was $2 grand before, now it's $4 grand. Politicians are such polarizing figures. No matter how bad they do, no matter how bad the policies they pass really are, they always have supporters. They always have people who are willing to defend all the bad they do. Justin Trudeau does not. Everyone has turned on this guy. The only reason he's even in power right now was because he called an election during the pandemic when there was so much uncertainty, and he secured himself another term that way. And when the election happens next year, he's gonna be gone so far away, he may end up getting deported from the country that he was a prime minister of. That'd be hilarious, and I am all for it. Yo, why is this city so cold? Is it always like this here? Shit. Well, there you go. There's the classic warm Canadian hospitality. They could not have cared less. People are so awkward here around strangers. It's hilarious. Any kind of interaction with someone you don't know, and everyone just kind of puzzles out and tunes out. They don't know how to behave. It's like they forgot everything about being a human. I blame Trudeau for that too. That ties into the next point that I want to get into. It's that everything here is so expensive. I already mentioned rent and food, but everything from gas to electricity to Wi-Fi to phone bills to shoes to clothes, everything is so god-awfully expensive here. And it's because of the monopolies that are in place here in Canada. The people at the top, they want to stay at the top. And because the government is so spineless and weak, they can't do anything to stand up to these big corporations. And these big corporations, well, they run all the way to the bank. They keep charging customers more. Customers can't do anything about it, because that's the way it goes here. Yeah, and Canadians have gotten used to a life like that. Hey! Nice to see people actually enjoying themselves here in the brutal winter Canada. That right there is dedicated to diversity, to celebrating all of the different cultures of Canada, the different peoples who live here, who came here from all over the world. And it's a wonderful thing until, of course, what I like to call the great immigration scam of Canada, started by Justin Trudeau. It takes advantage of immigrants, specifically Indian immigrants, because they come here more than any other nationality by far. 27% of all visas that were issued by Canada were issued to Indian nationals. Number 2 is Chinese nationals at 7%, so huge difference. And 50%, half of all Canadian permanent resident cards were issued to Indian people. Why? Why is Canada bringing in this many Indians at the same time? And there's a simple explanation. It's the only way the current people in charge can keep the government running, because they're not keeping their promises to the people. Our lives are not better off since they have been in power. So what they do is they bring in very cheap labor from India. And this is by no means a dig at anyone who's Indian. That happens sometimes. As I was saying, this is by no means a dig at anyone who's Indian or to anyone who's immigrated here. It's just they are victims of the government of Canada. Since rent has gone up almost 100%, the average Canadian can't afford to live in a one-bedroom apartment for $3,000. But for Indians who have just moved to Canada, who are looking for a place to live, they are more than happy to split a one-bedroom apartment amongst 4 people and pay $750 a month in rent, work 2 part-time jobs, make enough money to survive, and at the same time they got a life upgrade because now they live in Canada. The system keeps working because the tax dollars keep flowing into the government, but the quality of life for the people who are here is dropping. And remember, those Indians who are living in that one-bedroom apartment, they go on to want the best that Canada has to offer, and then they realize it doesn't exist. So many of them do end up going back to India and decide that their trip to Canada was a failure because they bought into a rigged system. The system was never going to reward them. The system just wants to use them to make tax dollars. The government makes their nut, and the GDP on paper looks good. But in reality, there is so much more to the story. Oh boy, look at the size of that crane. This is another perfect tie-in. Construction is Canada's unofficial mascot. It's like that song from Full House. Everywhere you go, there is construction. And it's true. Everywhere you go, no matter which city you go to, no matter what you're doing, you're gonna see a lot of construction here. These construction sites, most of the time, are collecting dust. There's no one working in them, and they are there for years. Years, sometimes even decades. And you're like, what are you guys building, bro? Why are you guys still not finished with this thing? If you gave me 10 years to actually go get something done, go get a construction project done, I could go get it done in 10 years. No problem. If you give 10 years to a Canadian company to finish a construction project, they will take 20. That's the way it goes. Part of me understands why it takes so long. It's because a lot of these construction companies who are building the roads, building the buildings, they are contracted by the governments. And they're incentivized to take as long as possible, because when they take as long as possible, they get more money from their union, so they can get more take home, they employ more people. And that's what ends up essentially causing all this construction around every major city. It should be up to the government to say, yo, finish this, or somebody else is gonna take over, but they don't do that. We are coming up to a big protest right now.
Israël assassine Trudeau complice. Israël assassine les enfants de Palestine.
They were saying Israel is a terrorist state and Trudeau is the accomplice. Honestly, not that far off, really. There is a really big population of Palestinians and Arabs here in Montreal, and they are huge, huge supporters of Palestine, as they should be. I walked into the mall to change my battery and stumbled upon Pure Litness. It's a party in here. How can I play ping pong?
You just need to be member and find someone who wants to play with you.
Member of what?
Decathlon store.
Okay, I understand, thank you.
2 minutes, 2 minutes.
Alright, well, that was kind of a buzzkill. The second he said I gotta sign up for a membership, I'm like, bro, I just want to play a game of ping pong, man. Nothing is ever free here. Did you guys go?
What?
Did you guys go?
Wait, it's like random, you know?
Oh, just go if you want to go.
Yeah.
Alright.
You can go after the...
I'm down. I'm down to try. Alright, yo, boss, can I go?
Нихуя. Кавычка. Надо же на видео подпиздеть.
907. I'll take 908. I'll take that. I'll take that. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I'll take that, 915. Yeah. This is why I like the city. There's something going on here, at least all the time. It's the liveliest of all Canadian cities. Right, we are back out into the frozen wasteland. I unleashed a killer right hook on that. My arm is kind of sore. Oof, it's been a while since I punched something. Now, imagine if I had to go to the hospital because I pulled something here. If I was like 45 and I punched that bag and my body was like, nah bro, you're too old, you gotta go to the hospital. Well, that ties into the next part. The healthcare system here is atrocious. I mean, atrocious, horrible, every negative word you can think of. It's so bad. And it's crazy because a lot of people who aren't Canadian, they think that we have free healthcare. We actually don't. We pay a lot more taxes to have healthcare, and it's run by the government. And the government decides the quality of the healthcare we get. And right now, it's dog water. Where I live now, here in Quebec, in the province of Quebec, the government is telling people, don't go to the emergency room because it's too busy. We don't have enough nurses. There is not enough doctors, there isn't enough space there. So if you got an emergency, stay home, ride it out. When, you know, they could instead maybe hire some new nurses, hire some new doctors, pay them more money. But no, the easier solution is just people to say, stay at home. Oh, you got a heart attack? Stay at home, no problem, ride it out, bud. I've never understood the idea behind this ring. Let's go find out while we're there. And while I'm walking there, let me get to the next point that I wanted to make. Strikes. Oh boy. Strikes are a regular part of Canadian life here. I mean, it's every industry at some point has somebody striking. Whether it's teachers, whether it's nurses, whether it's teaching assistants, whether it's professors, whether it's construction workers, somebody somewhere is striking. It's a regular occurrence. They strike every few years because they want more from the government, and the government never wants to give them any more. And it's a cycle that's always repeating all the time. And at the end of the day, the people who suffer because of it are the everyday Canadians who need those systems to work. Like me personally, I was part of 2 university strikes. And because of that, I had to graduate later. And so many of my friends actually couldn't start the jobs they had lined up because they couldn't graduate on time. And so their new employer didn't want to take them. It's horrible. But at the end of the day, it's just the reality of living in Canada. Strikes are a part of everyday life. With that, we are here at the ring. I guess Jack and the Beanstalk, when he climbed the beanstalk, he came down, he killed the giant, and this ring fell down with it. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's a finger ring or a different kind of ring. Either way, I'm not going to touch that thing. Hey, you guys know why this thing was built?
Sorry?
Do you guys know why this thing was built?
I have no idea. I'm not from Montreal.
It's okay. I was trying to find something here that said it, but I don't see anything. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know why. They have no signs to say why it was built or what it is. So, my theory will hold correct. That is the giant from Jack and the Beanstalk's cock ring. Yes, that's what we'll call it. Now the topic is kind of taking a bit of a different turn here, because now I'm talking about a cock ring. And it's a great segue to the next point, which is gender politics. Oh my goodness. Canada is the heaven when it comes to gender politics. Gender is essentially gotten militarized here, which is insane.
Shopping mall.
The where?
The shopping mall. Shopping.
Shopping mall?
Yeah.
It's right over there.
Over there?
You're gonna go to the street there?
Yeah.
You're gonna turn right. It's gonna be right there.
Oh, okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
no problem.
Right.
I'm here in this area because I don't want to talk about this among other people where they can all hear me, because I might get mobbed if I do, or maybe just, I'm not gonna get mobbed. There's gonna be a lot of very passive-aggressive looks and kind of angry demeanor that I'm gonna see, because Canadians are not a violent people, thankfully. Gender policies and gender politics have gotten way out of hand here, to the point where in Canada, except for one province, you can have a 11, 12-year-old kid, even a 10-year-old kid, if they want to change their genders, if they want to go have a life-changing surgery, they can go ahead and do that. These kids are not eligible yet to vote. They can't drink, they can't smoke, they haven't even hit puberty yet, but they're allowed by the government's decree to go to a hospital, and against their parents' wishes, if their parents don't want it, they're allowed to get their gender changed, have their genitals removed, get on hormone therapy. That's so wrong, because me personally, I've made so many decisions when I was 10 or 11 years old that I deeply regret, that I probably wouldn't have done at the age of 15, 16, that I definitely wouldn't do at the age of 20. And these kids are able to make these life-changing decisions. Maybe they're not going to want to do it. Maybe they're going to want to reverse it. And the government doesn't stop them. It actually encourages them to do so. Because the one province in Canada, Alberta, that banned that decision, that province got some very, very harsh criticism from Justin Trudeau and other Canadian political parties for doing what they did. It's such a big discussion here in Canada. I'm not anti-trans, I'm not anti-LGBTQ, I'm not anti-anything. I'm for everyone doing what they want to do, but they have to be adults first. You can't let children make decisions like that. It's so wrong, and it is really, really spineless to do. And we got a leader in charge who is perpetuating to people and kids to make decisions like that. It's horrible. Okay, I'm gonna start making my way towards a nice little park. On the way there, I'm gonna get into my next point, which is the lack of big cities here in Canada. I love big cities. I'm a huge big city person. I've lived in many big cities my whole life. You know, from Istanbul to Chicago to Toronto to Montreal. Those are probably the biggest cities I've lived in. And it's sad, Canada only has 3 big cities. You have Toronto, you have Montreal, and you got Vancouver. And that's it. And I know there's gonna be some Calgarians here who are gonna be like, Calgary's a big city, we're not small. Bro, Calgary is a giant suburb that wishes it was a big city. I live there too. It's not a big city. And 2 of those big cities, Toronto and Vancouver, are both unlivable. The standard of life, the quality of life in those cities has gotten so bad, Montreal is still about half as expensive as Toronto and Vancouver is. So it's not so bad here yet. But the rest of the big cities here, unlivable. So much traffic, they've gotten much more dangerous. 1-bedroom apartment rent is 2,800 Canadian dollars, which is ridiculous. And it's sad because I loved Toronto for so long. That was my home for so many years, for over a decade. And I saw that city go to shit. It really hurt, but hey, it is what it is. And the best thing I did in the last year was get the hell out of that city and move to Montreal. And real talk, if it wasn't for the city of Montreal, I wouldn't live in Canada. And I don't want to live in a small suburb, so Montreal is the only place I got left, and this is my home now. We are almost at the park, and I'm reaching the end of my points. The second to last one is that there's just no go-getter spirit here. This is a very complacent culture, and it's unfortunate because there's no innovation coming out of Canada. It's just we copy what America does well, and then we get rid of most of it because it offends people, and then we try to make do with what we got left, but it's usually not enough. Even our biggest musical exports like Justin Bieber and Drake, they don't really live in Canada. Yeah, they have houses here, but they spend most of their time outside of Canada. They're not here. And that's because why would they stay here? For them, they want to go south of the border where there is more go-getter spirits. There is less complacency. Canada also doesn't really reward businesses with any tax breaks, so companies aren't at all incentivized to innovate. They just want to do what they've always been doing and hopefully make enough money to pay all their bills at the end of the month and do it all again the next month. That's the culture here, and it's unfortunate, but it's the reality of Canada. Hey bud, you want to be Canada's next Prime Minister? You could do a better job than the guy in office right now. Yeah? You nodding? Saw, dude. Up. The last point I want to make is there's no core Canadian identity, and having national pride in Canada is almost taboo here. And that's very unfortunate because this is such a great country and we should be taking pride in it, but we don't. And every diaspora that's here, they kind of stay in their own lane. They do their own thing, like the Indian diaspora stays with other Indians, the Chinese stay with the other Chinese, the Ukrainians stay with the other Ukrainians, and that's how it goes. But it's unfortunate, like when the World Cup happened here in 2022, it was the first time Canada was ever in the World Cup. And from people's reactions, you would think that no one even knew about it. There has to be better national pride in this country. And that's not going to change until we do. And the first thing we can change is get the current goddamn leader out of office. We need to steer the ship a different way. At this point, vote for anybody else other than that derelict Justin Trudeau. Please, for the love of God. I know I will. Well, that's going to wrap up today's video. Thank you for tuning in, Allegiance. I'll see you next time. Have a good one.